So, you want to make a big splash with a trade? Ha! What a rookie. On January 31st, 2010, Brian Burke made a splash with 2 trades on the same day, in the same press conference. And he joins us once again for another trade tree video. In my last video with Burke, he talked about the trade where he brought Dion Phaneuf from the Calgary Flames to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Later that same day, he made another deal. First, some context. Brian Burke was hired to be the Leafs general manager and president in November of 2008. It often goes forgotten, but Brian Burke inherited one of the most notorious goaltending tandems in Leafs history, at least recent Leafs history. In the 2007-2008 season, the Leafs went at it with a tandem of Andrew Raycroft and Vesa Toskala. Now, Raycroft couldn't have been that disastrous, you might say, because in his first season as a Leafs goalie, he had 37 wins, which was a Leafs record until recently when Frederik Andersen broke it. He set that in the 2006-2007 season when he played 72 games. Andrew Raycroft had a dismal .894 save percentage during that time. Why did they play him so much? Well, their backup was J.S. Aubin, who had a .876? Had to read it just to make sure. So the Leafs go out and they make a trade with the San Jose Sharks. Now, we're not going to talk about that trade. That's a different trade tree for a different day. But one of the stories I remember hearing in the hockey ether, I can't tell you where it's from, but at one point the San Jose Sharks had 3 goalies in their system. Evgeny Nabokov, Mika Kiprusoff, people often forget that, and Vesa Toskala. And there was a thought out there that Toskala would end up being the best one. What's the most wrong you've ever been? But Leafs make a trade, they get Vesa Toskala, they have a tandem now of Toskala and Raycroft. In the 07-08 season, Toskala had a .904 save percentage. Now, that's not very good. Raycroft duplicated J.S. Aubin's numbers from the season before with an .876, which is terrible. Why didn't they try someone else? In 3 games, Scott Clemmensen had an .839, which I don't think I've ever seen before. But Toskala played in 66 games that season, and he wasn't great, but he was the best option the Leafs had. I even remember the cover of the Hockey News on my way to school one day said the Leafs will go as far as Vesa Toskala takes them. Technically true. And so, near the beginning of the 08-09 season when Brian Burke was hired, he talked to the Leafs' new head coach and his friend, Ron Wilson, about the goaltending situation.
When I first came to Toronto, I asked Ronnie Wilson, do I need to get a goalie? And he said no, he thought Vesa could do the job, and he had him in San Jose. So I said, well, I'm not so sure about that, but fine. We gave Vesa a try, and Vesa was a great kid, just not a good enough goaltender.
That's all right, that's okay. And you can criticize Brian Burke for, well, why did he take Ron Wilson's word for it? Well, he had been coaching the player for up to 2 months there, and remember, Ron Wilson used to be the head coach of the San Jose Sharks, the organization that Vesa Toskala had just come from. He knew the player. It went, poorly. Like I said, Toskala had a .904 save percentage in his first season as a Leafs goalie. Not the best, but survivable. In his next season as a Leafs goalie, he had an .891, which is worse. In his 3rd season with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Toskala's save percentage was .874. Bad doesn't begin to describe it. You could dress up as an .874 for Halloween. The Leafs were done with the Vesa Toskala experiment. They had a new hot shot in net. The Monster. Wait a sec, do I still have... I lost the stick, but I still got the bobblehead. Jonas Gustafsson. Listen, the Monster had amazing numbers in Sweden, and if he wasn't amazing with the Toronto Maple Leafs, he was at very least the best option they had at the time. As a sidebar, it's unfortunate what happened to Jonas Gustafsson. He had injuries, health problems, family tragedy. It was terrible. Yes, these guys are professional athletes, and they're definitely better at hockey than you, but at the end of the day, they're only human. Now, stepping away from the goaltending for a sec, can anyone tell me out there, without looking, without cheating, who won the Leafs scoring title in 2008-2009? Who was the top scoring Leaf? Anybody? 3, 2, 1. With a team leading 25 goals and 63 points in 78 games, Jason Blake. The next season, however, just 10 goals and 26 points in 56 games. He wasn't getting any younger, and he had a $4 million cap hit for the next few years. Vesa Toskala also had a $4 million cap hit. Brian Burke saw some issues forming.
And we had a couple incidents with the team, some discipline incidents, so we wanted to get a couple guys out of the room.
And I remember just having my mind blown by this trade. Because again, remember, this happened the same day the Toronto Maple Leafs acquired Dion Dion Phaneuf. You know, some members of Leafs Nation, they roll their eyes at the Phaneuf trade now, but in 2010, that was huge! Now, at the same time, I can remember all the blogs. They were talking about, the Toskala contract, the Jason Blake contract. They're both unmovable players. And then on the same day Brian Burke acquired Dion Phaneuf, he trades both Toskala and Blake in the same deal. The trade was 2-for-1, Jason Blake and Vesa Toskala to the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for goaltender Giguere. Very interesting move from a money perspective. Vesa Toskala, final year of a $4 million deal. He made $4 million. It was prorated for that time of the season that he was traded. Giguere made $6 million against the cap and $6 million that season, but he had a backdiving contract. It was a $6 million cap hit and a $7 million salary during the 2010-11 season. So, higher cap hit, higher money hit. What's the trade-off? Jason Blake made $4 million against the cap, but instead of the one extra year on his deal, he had two, expiring in 2012. The money that he was owed went down to $3 million, but remember this trade involved MLSE and cash doesn't matter. The Leafs took on more of a cap hit in the short term to get rid of money in the long term. The other big trade-off the Leafs got out of this deal, and you're not going to believe this, Giguere stopped pucks. After a down season in Anaheim, the aging Giguere in the remaining games with the 2009-2010 Toronto Maple Leafs put up a .916 save percentage, which for the Leafs during that era was like Patrick Waugh in the playoffs in overtime. And after all, why wouldn't Brian Burke have faith in Giguere? He gave him a Stanley Cup in 2007.
That deal brought in Giguere, who I had won with in Anaheim, trusted, wonderful person, and actually gave the Leafs some pretty good goaltending for a year and a half or so. That trade I was happy to make same day. I think it changed our room, changed our team, and gave us a chance to win.
Now, the following season, the Leafs had a tandem of Giguere and Jonas Gustafsson in net. It was like the teacher and the apprentice. And that is how it ended up working out, just not with Jonas Gustafsson. One day during the 2010-11 season, Giguere is out with injury. Jonas Gustafsson is starting the game, and a young James Reimer is the backup goalie. Gustafsson ends up getting pulled, and Reimer gets to go into the game for his first NHL action. And he won games. And he kept stopping pucks and kept winning games. He put up a .921 save percentage in 37 games. And if Giguere's .916 the season before was mind-blowing, this, I don't even know. He was like a brick wall with good manners. It was ridiculous. The following season, injuries sewered Reimer's season, and if only they hadn't. Brian Burke was fired just prior to the 2012-2013 lockout-shortened season. If the Leafs had just held on to him for that one lockout-shortened season, he would have seen James Reimer throw up a .924 save percentage in 33 of the team's 48 games. God, I miss James. Sorry, I should talk about the Ducks. From his end of things, Jason Blake was a pretty good Duck when he arrived, 15 points in 26 games. The next season, not the best, 16 goals and 16 assists for 32 points in 76 games. He did have 3 goals and 4 points in 6 playoff games, though. In his final season with the Ducks, 12 points in 45 games, and then he was done. Vesa Toskala, how did he do with the Ducks? How did he do? Oh, right, they traded him 4 days later. He was traded to the Calgary Flames in exchange for Curtis McElhinney. And, of course, Toskala played 6 games with the Flames, threw up a .918 save percentage, which is amazing. And that was it for his NHL career. He went to Finland, put up terrible numbers, and called it quits. Weird. Hockey. McElhinney would end up playing 31 games for the Anaheim Ducks, and he had some good games, some bad. It would be a few more years until he turned into the backup beast that we know today. Sorry, I should say the Stanley Cup champion that we know today, just winning with the 2020 Tampa Bay Lightning. And then the Ducks traded him straight up for a goaltender named Dan Ellis. And he was good for the Ducks in the few games that he played, but they had a new young goalie named Jonas Hiller who played a lot. During the 2011-12 season, he played in 73 of the Ducks' 82 games. Not a lot of net for Ellis to play with. So, talk about a splash. All in one day, Brian Burke pulled off the 7-person Dion Phaneuf deal, left the room for a few minutes, maybe had a sip of coffee, came back and made the Vesa Toskala and Jason Blake for J.S. Giguere deal. He shed a little bit of term off the team's cap going forward. He got a goalie who could actually stop pucks. He got a teacher for the team's young goaltender. He just got the wrong young goaltender, that's all. It was an enormous splash to make on some random Sunday in the middle of the winter of 2010. So, what'd you think of this one? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. And that is it for this one.
You know what? We're not done. We're not done. I've decided we're not done. That was the Vesa Toskala trade tree, and I had a good time. You deserve a bonus. So, here's talking to Brian Burke about a 1-for-1 trade, JVR, James Van Riemsdyk, for Luke Schenn. Enjoy. 2-1.
Brian Burke's last move as Toronto Maple Leafs GM was arguably his best. And today, we take a look back on the James Van Riemsdyk for Luke Schenn deal. As you can see, the Leafs side of things is pretty short, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And as for the Philadelphia Flyers, well, it's a little bit more complicated. First, the context. This deal involves 2 top 5 picks. James Van Riemsdyk, this big but skilled American winger, looked like he had incredible goal-scoring potential. He was picked 2nd overall in 2007 by the Flyers. The very next year, this guy behind me, Luke Schenn, the Leafs trade up to draft him 5th overall in 2008. This big bruising defenseman. People are talking about him like he's going to be the next Scott Stevens. Now, there was always a problem with that comparison. First of all, can you pick someone a little less good than a first ballot Hall of Famer? Hello, 18-year-old rookie. It's your job to be exactly like Scott Stevens, one of the most feared defensemen of all time. Oh, also the team that you're going to make your NHL debut on totally sucks. Anyway, have fun. When it came to JVR for the Flyers and Luke Schenn for the Leafs, both came in with extraordinary hype. And they showed why many times. Luke Schenn was this teenage mutant minute eater for the Toronto Maple Leafs on a D-core that was frankly bad. He'd lay big hits and sometimes even bigger hits, allowing people to go, oh my goodness, imagine how big this guy's gonna be when he's like 23, 24. Whereas JVR, slow burn. In fact, despite being picked 2nd overall the year before Schenn, JVR made his NHL debut in 2009, the year after Schenn. He gets drafted 2nd overall out of the American Development Program, and he's like, I think I'm gonna go play at the University of New Hampshire for a couple years. Flyers fans just frothing at the mouth like, come on! When he finally debuted with the Flyers, he had the good, not great numbers of 15 goals, 20 assists, 35 points in 78 games, but he played in 21 playoff games that season. That's right, that's the year the Flyers went all the way to the Stanley Cup final against the Chicago Blackhawks. JVR adding 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. Next season he puts up 21 goals and 40 points, okay. And then the 11-12 season for JVR was a mess. He missed a lot of time, only playing in 43 games, and in those games, 11 goals, 13 assists, 24 points. And before that season even began, in August of 2011, JVR signed a 6-year contract extension with a value of $4.25 million against the cap. All of a sudden, the Philadelphia Flyers kind of have a decision to make. Do you want to keep this kid or not? Hold that thought. During the same offseason, Luke Schenn signed a 5-year contract extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs, paying him $3.6 million against the cap. And by the end of the 2011-12 season, it was a different story. The 08-09 Leafs, when you're 18 years old and you're playing in the top 6, you look like a star. If the team sucks around you, it's not even your fault. Dude, you're 18. What do they expect? But by the end of the 2011-12 season, the Leafs still sucked. And all of a sudden, Luke Schenn, with 4 full NHL seasons under his belt, starts to take on some of that responsibility. Another team with a big decision. Do we want to keep this guy long term? So, before the 2012 lockout began, the Leafs and Flyers said, how about a change of scenery deal? But with a 6-year contract involved, a 4-year contract involved, a 5th overall pick, a 2nd overall pick involved, it is a rather high stakes change of scenery deal. And to make it a little extra spicy, the deal is 1-for-1. James Van Riemsdyk is traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs straight up for Luke Schenn.
You gotta understand too, Steve, that we loved Luke Schenn. Like Luke Schenn is a coach's dream. He's a hard-nosed right shot defenseman. He can kill penalties. He'll fight. I mean, he fought in the playoffs this year. Like, he's a wonderful kid. Perfect in the room. Coaches loved him. it made me sick to my stomach to trade him. It's like when I traded Brian McCabe to get the Twins. I felt physically ill when I traded Brian McCabe. I loved Brian McCabe as a player and as a person. We felt strongly we weren't scoring enough goals and our power play was too anemic. We felt we needed JVR. That turned out to be one of my better trades, by the way. He was an excellent Leaf. Sometimes you got to put a great kid on an airplane to get the guy back you want. And that one worked out pretty well for Toronto.
Interesting move for Brian Burke, high stakes move for Brian Burke. And he makes it in the summer of 2012, and then they announce the end of the lockout. The season's going to begin in January, and pack your stuff, he got fired.
The day I got fired, I was going to the airport to fly to New York and vote on the CBA and announce a new collective bargaining agreement. We're coming back to play. And that's when I got the phone call and called back in the office and fired. And I really did not see it coming. I was totally blindsided by it. There hadn't been any media rumors about it. There hadn't been fans screaming and yelling. I think people saw the team was moving the right way finally. And I had said to Larry Tannenbaum in the meeting, I said, well, at least let me have it's a shortened season. It's a 48-game season. Well, at least let me have the shortened season. And he said, no, we're making the change now. I said, well, that team's going to make the playoffs. And they did, with me watching in the press box.
The Toronto Maple Leafs allowed Brian Burke to trade a 5th overall pick, acquire a 2nd overall pick, with 6 years left on his deal, and then canned him. Okay. Well, lucky for the Toronto Maple Leafs, it panned out. JVR played in all 48 games of the lockout-shortened season, with the Leafs adding 18 goals. More importantly, the Leafs actually made the playoffs that season. What happened in them, I don't like to talk about it, but within those playoffs, in 7 games, JVR led the Leafs in scoring 2 goals, 5 assists, 7 points. He was a point-a-game player. And then they blew a 4-1 lead to the Bruins. But it wasn't JVR's fault. Then, during the 2013-14 season, although maybe the Leafs weren't quite as good, JVR finally hit the potential people expected of him, scoring 30 goals and 61 points in 80 games. The next season, small step backwards, but still pretty good, 27 goals, 56 points. But the Leafs were on a sharp downward turn, and JVR was far too good to be in that lineup. In 40 games, JVR had 29 points. That's no good when you're trying to finish last. And he was hurt. I'm not saying he wasn't hurt, but there was a feeling in Leaf fandom at the time like, yeah, is he? Could it have been he might play through it if they were in playoff contention sort of thing? Didn't matter. He went the rest of the way on injured reserve, and the Leafs were as bad could be. Got the 1st overall pick, got Austin Matthews. Then the next wave of the Leafs, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, and add JVR back to that group as well. A full and healthy 82-game regular season in 2016-17, 29 goals, and a new career high of 62 points. The following season, he played in 82 games, once again, relatively healthy, decided assists are overrated, only had 18, but put up 36 goals. And there's a reason I took you through that season by season by season. That 6-year contract the Flyers gave JVR, the one that they were like, I don't know if this kid's gonna live up to it, so we need to deal him. He lived up to it and then some, playing some of his best hockey by the end of it. In fact, playing himself to the point where the Leafs couldn't afford him anymore. So in the summer of 2019, he signs back with the Philadelphia Flyers, full circle for him. 5 years, $7 million. He even gets the raise. So, what about Luke Schenn? Well, here he is on the Philadelphia Flyers getting absolutely torched by JVR wearing a Leafs jersey. That's fun. That's fun if you're him, for sure. You can see how you would think it would work. Luke Schenn going to the Broad Street Bullies. And he played a lot in his first season with the Philadelphia Flyers, nearly 22 minutes a night. After that, never really got it back. In the Flyers seasons that followed, hovering between 16 and a half, 18 minutes a night. Then, a trade happened, January 2016, that I remember taking a lot of people by surprise. The Philadelphia Flyers managed to send Luke Schenn and an older Vincent Lecavalier to the LA Kings in exchange for a young Jordan Weal and a 2016 third-round pick. In order to make the deal happen, the Flyers retained salary, half the salary of each of Vincent Lecavalier and Luke Schenn, the maximum allowable. In exchange, the Flyers got, the cap space for one, a third-round pick, that's always fun, everyone loves the mystery box, and Jordan Weal. Weal was the 70th overall pick in 2010, that's a third-round round pick, and I remember him as this just you wait prospect who we just you waited on for a very long time. He finally made his NHL debut during the 2015-16 season with the LA Kings. He played 10 games and they said, "That's great, thank you," and they shipped him out the door to the Flyers. And now we can speed it up a bit. With the third round pick that the Flyers got in that deal, they selected Carson Twarynski, who just this past season made his NHL debut, played 15 games, only had 1 point, but he got his first NHL goal. As for Jordan Weal, he managed to put up 8 goals, 21 points in 69 games. And then the following season in 2018-19, he had 9 points in 28 games with the Flyers before a deal to the Arizona Coyotes. In that deal, the Philadelphia Flyers acquire a 6th round pick in 2019 and Jacob Graves. Now, is Graves going to make it to the NHL? It's looking tough. He's 25 years old now and he played for 3 different ECHL teams last year, but how many ECHL teams did you play for? You're still good at hockey. With the 6th round pick that they got, the Philadelphia Flyers, 169th overall, selected a goalie. Now, I hate judging players this young, especially goalies. The numbers are nonsense. But I like the pick so far because it's just a really satisfying name to say. Roddy Ross from Meadow Lake, Saskatchewan. Roddy Ross. Come on. Roddy Ross sounds like the villain if they ever did a Talladega Nights 2. So, because there are some really young players still involved in this trade tree, I'm not gonna declare victory or something, because you never know. But, like I said at the top, this was a high-risk, high-reward, change of scenery deal. It benefited JVR greatly. Luke Schenn, not so much. Well, I'm not sure about that either. In 2019, he got to cheer on his brother Braden as he won a Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues. And this past season, I was about to say this past summer, this past whatever the bubble was, Luke Schenn became a Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. You're all watching this trade tree video now. Eventually, people will stop clicking on this. It'll go away. But Luke Schenn's name is going to be on the Stanley Cup forever. Just like so many predicted at the beginning of his career, Luke Schenn hoisting the Stanley Cup wearing blue and white. So, what'd you think of this trade tree? Leave a comment in the comment box down below. And for now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. Someone should hire that Brian Burke guy. Who does he work for?